Recently, the team at XAI introduced Grok 4, a new generation artificial intelligence system. During a public demonstration, someone asked the AI a surprisingly simple question about the resurrection of Jesus. The response that followed caught a lot of attention. The question was straightforward. What does the Ethiopian Bible say about what happened after Jesus rose from the dead? Instead of repeating the story most people have heard their entire lives, the AI pointed toward ancient manuscripts preserved outside the Western biblical tradition. These writings describe teachings attributed to Jesus in the days following the resurrection, teachings that do not appear in the versions of the Bible most widely used in the West. According to some of these records, Jesus remained with his disciples for 40 days after returning from the dead. During that time, he continued teaching, warning, and revealing ideas that never made it into the most familiar biblical texts. Some passages include warnings about the future of his own message, warnings about people who would one day use his name for influence, power, or personal gain. Other sections speak about impressive temples built in the name of faith, yet spiritually empty inside. For many modern readers, some of these descriptions feel surprisingly relevant to the present day. One of the most interesting differences appears in the number of books considered sacred. Most Bibles used in the Western world contain 66 books. The Ethiopian Christian tradition, however, preserved a much larger collection of writings. Depending on the tradition, that collection can include more than 80 texts. That means dozens of ancient writings never became part of the Bible most people are familiar with today. Ethiopia occupies a unique place in Christian history. The country adopted Christianity around the 4th century, making it one of the oldest Christian nations in the world. For centuries, monks preserved manuscripts in remote mountain monasteries. Many of these texts were copied by hand, generation after generation. They were written in Ge'ez, an ancient language that today survives almost entirely within the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Outside that tradition, very few people can read it. While religious authorities in different parts of the world decided which texts would become part of the official biblical canon, Ethiopian tradition preserved a much broader body of writings. Among them are books such as Enoch and Jubilees, texts that were also known among some early Christian communities. Today, scholars study these manuscripts to better understand how the earliest followers of Jesus thought about faith and spirituality. And modern tools, including artificial intelligence, are helping accelerate that research. By comparing thousands of pages of ancient documents, AI systems can detect patterns and connections that would normally take scholars decades to identify. That process is part of what recently brought renewed attention to some of these Ethiopian manuscripts. One text often discussed is called the Book of the Covenant. In it, Jesus is described speaking to his followers after the resurrection, giving guidance on how his message should spread through the world. Interestingly, the emphasis is not on political power, armies, or religious authority. Instead, the writing suggests that the true power behind the message would come from spiritual transformation within individuals. Other passages warn about leaders who accumulate wealth while the people around them suffer. They emphasize that faith should be measured by how communities care for the most vulnerable. Widows, orphans, and the sick appear repeatedly in these teachings as central responsibilities of believers. In this perspective, the true church is not a building or an institution. It is a network of people who care for one another and share what they have. For historians, these manuscripts do not necessarily prove that one tradition is correct and another is wrong. What they reveal instead is how diverse early Christianity actually was. Different communities preserve different interpretations and traditions across the centuries. Now, with modern technology analyzing ancient texts at a much larger scale, some of these forgotten traditions are re-entering global discussion. Perhaps the most powerful idea repeated across many of these writings is surprisingly simple. Spiritual transformation does not begin with institutions or structures of power. It begins within the human heart. And maybe that is exactly why these manuscripts continue to spark curiosity today, because they raise a question that is difficult to ignore. If so many ancient writings survived outside the most familiar versions of the Bible, how many other forgotten stories are still waiting to be rediscovered?